All right, is everyone in here over 17 and a half years old?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, do we have any 18-year-olds or older?
Yes.
Okay, so if you are only 17 and a half, have you already registered to vote?
No.
No, I have not.
No? Okay. How about the 18-year-olds? Are you guys all registered to vote?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how many of the 18-year-olds or older voted in this election earlier this month?
You bet.
All right, that's awesome to hear. Okay. Voting is not only a civic right, but it is a civic duty, so everyone is obligated to vote if they're at the legal age to do so. I feel very well educated on this topic because in my debate class we've researched a lot about the importance and the process behind voting and how important each ballot is. So some important facts just for you guys to consider. The legal voting age to register is 17 and a half years old. So in the state of Iowa, as long as you have your social security number, your driver's license, or a state-issued ID, you can go online and register to vote, and it's a really quick and easy process. But you must be 18 by election day in order to participate in the election. So polling locations are also very easy to find. So since we all go to high school together, I chose to find a location or a few locations that would be close to where we go to school just in case anyone was curious about how common polling locations are. So I found First Congregational Church, the Peace Reformed Church, Augustana Lutheran Church, and Cross Point Church, and that was just when I Googled polling locations near me, and it took me about 30 seconds to find the results. So you can see just how easy it is to really find them. Now, there is a major problem in our country today, and that is that people are not voting. In the 2016 presidential election, 138 million ballots were counted, which sounds like a lot, but in reality that was only 58.1% of the eligible voting population, and that's according to the Penn State University libraries. So that's obviously a big problem that almost half the country who could have voted wasn't. Another statistic with that election is that Iowa had a 69.1% voter turnout rate, so they were ranked above the top countries in the nation, and 1.6 million ballots were counted for the state of Iowa, and that's according to the United States Election Project. So that's obviously a really good thing that Iowa as a state is moving in the right direction. I really like this image because I think it stresses the importance that I think that a lot of people overlook or misunderstand about voting and how much your vote really does matter because your rights do depend on your vote. So now I'd like to show you guys just a short video, and this video just touches briefly on some of the important points with voting. Sorry about that.
Good morning, John. This video comes to you in 54 parts, each of which will explain how to register to vote, how to get a sample ballot, and how to vote in each of the 50 states, as well as in a few other cases. Because we are the United States of America, and each state establishes its own laws and procedures, so the process of voting is different everywhere. It's just part of what makes America beautiful, and a little bit annoying. But yes, we did put together over 30,000 words of scripts for this project, and yes, it was a bit of a pain. But it's worth it because I feel that voting is one of the most important parts of being an American. There are a lot of different ways to vote, not just practically, depending on where you live, but philosophically. You can vote for the world you most want to see, or you can vote for the world you think will most likely bring change, or you can vote for just one thing or based on just one thing. How you want to vote is up to you, as is whether you vote. But I want to make sure that you understand that not voting isn't some revolutionary political act. If you're not voting, no one is hearing your voice, so they have no reason to represent you. Depending on where you live, registering and voting are varying degrees of difficulty. But in these videos, I'm making it clear. If you don't think the voting matters because no one voter decides an election, two things. One, if everybody thought that way, nobody would vote except for one guy who was just drunk and stumbled into the polling place, and he would decide how the entire country got wrong. So it does matter. If everyone who watches this video goes out and votes, us, will be an important voting bloc. Second, the majority of government in America is local, and local elections do, in fact, frequently get decided by one person. This is how change happens, especially as national government has become less effective in recent years. This is how laws get made and how rights get granted or taken away. If you don't feel informed on every issue, it's easy to get a sample ballot, which I'll explain in your state's video, and to do some research. It just just takes an hour or half hour of research to help make America a better place. It's not hard. It might be a little complicated, but we're gonna solve that problem right now. Please send this video or the corresponding state video to everyone you know who might not vote because it's too complicated or they're not sure how. We do not change this country as individuals. We change it as an electorate. It might not be fast, it might not be perfect, but democracy does not work if we do not participate. You can now click on your state's name to watch the video on how to make sure you're...
Alright, so obviously in that video he did use some humor to push some points across, but I do think he made some very important points about how important voting really is. So one thing that I wanted to focus on again is that your vote is your voice. So if you choose not to vote, you are choosing for yourself to not be represented in our government, which is obviously a huge issue if anybody, but much less if an entire nation decides to act like that. So now there's a really easy solution to the problem, and that is us. So we are the ones who need to go out and be voting. So according to Pew Research Center, millennials and Generation Z voters are soon to surpass baby boomers and Generation X voters, which is important because we are voting for our future. So just in case you guys weren't sure on the ages, the baby boomers are between 54 and 72 years old. Generation X is between 38 and 53 years old. Millennials are between 22 and 37 years old. And Generation Z voters are at the legal age up to 21 years old. So baby boomers especially are starting to vote for a future that they're not going to be involved in. So that's why it's so important for young people to take charge and vote for our future. So now there's always issues why people choose not to vote. So they can say, I'll be out of town, there's a family event, I've got work, I've got something else going on. So one easy solution to this are absentee voters ballots. So these can be requested by mail. They send you your voter's ballot, and then you can mail in your ballot up to 6 weeks before the election. So another issue that people run into is they don't have a way to get to the polling places. Just some options for that. You could take public transportation, or you could ask family, friends, coworkers, because chances are they'll also be going down to vote there. So I'm sure they'd be glad to help you out. And again, another solution, of course, is the absentee voter's ballot. So one thing that people tend to say as well is that it's only one vote, it doesn't matter. But as this political cartoon shows, that's a toxic mentality, because with the 2016 presidential election, for example, almost half the eligible voting population chose not to vote. If they would have voted, they could have thrown the election one way or the other by huge margins that we know nothing about because people chose not to vote. So when millions of people say their vote doesn't matter, those votes really add up and they do matter in the end. So to end, I would like to quote Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was the 32nd president of the United States. And he said, "Nobody will ever deprive the American people of the right to vote except the American people themselves. And the only way they can do this is by not voting."